meeting of the Youth Select Committee. I am Jeffrey Comish and I will be acting as chair for the committee today as Riona is unable to attend. The Youth Select Committee was established in the autumn of 2023 in order to give young people in the Isle of Man the opportunity to scrutinise government policy. We sit here today as a second iteration of the committee. After talking to our peers, we decided to examine the educational, vocational and developmental opportunities available on Ireland to young people leaving secondary or higher education. This afternoon, we will be hearing from representatives of the Department of Education, Sport and Culture. Please ensure that any mobile phones are turned off or on silent so that we do not have any interruptions. For the purposes of Hansard, I will be ensuring that we do not have two people talking at once. With me today are the other members of the committee, who I will now ask to introduce themselves.
Hello, I'm Alex Cowley.
I'm Scarlett Clegg.
I'm Freya Baggs.
And I'm David Caine.
For a record, could you please introduce yourselves and your role in the department? Thank you.
Hello, my name is Sarah Maltby, MHK. I represent Douglas South, but within the Department of Education, Sport and Culture, I look after the Isle of Man Arts Council and the Culture Division.
Good afternoon, I'm Daphne Caine. I'm the Minister for Education, Sport and Culture.
Good afternoon, I'm Paul Craine. I'm a member of Legislative Council. I'm in the Education Department where I have some responsibilities for some aspects of data and some aspects of legislation because bills going through the chambers I will take through Legislative Council.
Thank you. So the first questions today relate to work experience. So my first question for you is, does the department have an overarching policy on work experience at present, or is it something decided by each individual high school?
Shall I start? And then we go in. We have the Employability and Careers Education Framework and Linked Entitlement Offer Policy, which I hope you've had links to the policy, which is online. And I suppose each individual high school coordinates the work experience for those students. Mainly it's more targeted and tailored to the individuals either at 16 or 18 who are determining that they are going into the workplace, and there's probably a switch from how it was a few years ago to being tailored around the particular interests or ambitions and aspirations of those students.
Thank you. Do you want me to? Where's this information from schools from?
Well, we do have some information from the schools because you kindly informed us of the topics of interest in particular. So, do you want to know specific schools' information in terms of the support that they provide to the individual schools? So
so QE2 provided us with some information. So they have some Key Stage 4 students and Key Stage 5 students who completed work experience last year. St Ninians, they don't do a wholesale work experience like the Minister said. It's more of a bespoke offering. And that's for sixth form students who are entering the world of work directly after the sixth form studies, and a small number of Key Stage 4 students. Ballacamine, they have a range of Year 10 and Year 11 students from 2024 and 2025. We have that data here. So we have 14 students in Year 10, 17 in Year 11, and 2025 there was 18 students in Year 10 and 8 in Year 11. And so you can see it's kind of really dependent on the year group, the needs of that year group, and what the needs of that young person.
Ballacamine says probably end up with around 15 by the year end.
Yes.
When we gather those figures for
So it looks like, from what we can see, that the school over the year, if the students who need to then join the work experience for whatever reason that might be, that option is available, and there's somebody who coordinates that. Casa Russian, they've got work experience students as well, and Ramsey Grammar has also got work experience students. So we can see there from across the piece from our high schools that each school does have some sort of work experience programme which is coordinated by the school.
Yeah, additionally, UCM say approximately 30% of full-time level 1 to 3 students completed complete a structured work placement of at least 5 days in 2024-25, with some extending up to 25 days. All full-time students benefited from at least one work-based encounter. Many students compete in the annual skills test, with some competing in the Pan-Island competition each year as well. So there's quite a range of offering, but I think rather than every student having some work experience, it is very much now a bespoke, tailored to the individual.
So going just back to the high schools, was that organised by the students themselves, or do they get help from their high schools or the department?
There are careers advisors within all the schools who support the students. I'm not going to say, because I'm aware that sometimes students may have a particular placement or make their own inquiries, but there are staff that support students doing their work experience, as far as I'm aware.
Yeah, because obviously there's things that needs to happen and be put in place, so there needs to be somebody to coordinate that, like the risk assessments, they make sure the insurance is up to date with the employee, so there's lots of things that need to be checked to ensure that that young person is going to be safe within the work experience setting. So it's not a case of, okay, great, you're going to go and work wherever, and that young person is just allowed to go. There is obviously lots of things put in place to ensure that they're safe, as well as making sure it's going to be meaningful, and it's not just making the cups of tea for 2 weeks. You know, it's got to be make sure that there's some learning there and there's some experience for the young person to develop their own skills and potential ambitions about what they might want to do. You know, it has to be meaningful, and that's really important from our perspective as well as the department, that we see that happening.
You mentioned before that the work experience is more tailored towards those wanting to leave school at 16 and 18 to go into the workforce. Do you not believe that work experience is also useful to assist those going into higher education to decide which career path they wish to take, and therefore which degree might be best suited to them?
I think all work experience is good experience. I think another piece of work that we have been putting quite some effort into is a revision of our employment of children regulations, which are actually going before Tynwald next week for approval. And they have very much responded to feedback from young people and employers, Chamber of Commerce, other bodies and industry bodies. And that is all about enabling and ensuring the well-being of young people in the workplace, but also giving really clear guidance to the kinds of employment that young people from 13 years and upwards are able to take up. So I think that we're very fortunate that we've got a pretty buoyant economy with many different jobs, particularly in hospitality or tourism and other sectors. But I think that there are options for people to have paid work experience within the limitations of doing that safely alongside studying, and then increasingly in the holidays, as well as the work experience placements. But it's not blanket across a whole year group anymore, not only because it wouldn't be meaningful for all the students, but also from an employer's perspective, I think we've seen a definite change since post-COVID years. But I feel strongly that the offering that is there is more meaningful for both the students and for the employers.
I think we have to recognise that work placements are actually in finite supply. So in terms of finding placements, that's not easy. So we do ask a lot of employers in terms of supporting work placements at different stages and ages alongside their business, but they may not be able to offer a school work experience placement. They might offer instead to come in to talk to a group of students in school, which is different from work experience, but it's work-related learning without a doubt. And I think employers have welcomed the experience of workplace approach, because it means they can engage with education more flexibly in a way that has greater impact on a greater number of learners, so they can reach more people. But it is not as simple as saying, we've got the 200 people in year 11 and we want them all to do a week's work experience and then find employers, especially these days with the level of risk assessment that has to go on behind that.
And I think the department also has other opportunities for students to explore what kind of career they're interested in and what opportunities are out there. So, for instance, with the Employment and Skills Fair, that gives a very broad range of showcase of the many different sectors, employers and careers that are available on island.
Thank you.
I think too, the when you go to the Employment and Skills Fair, having attended that for many years, I always ask the young people questions to see how well prepared they are, and I think those attending in the last 2 years especially, I've found them better prepared than in previous years. You know, they know why they're there, they know what they're looking for, they have places they want to talk to, and maybe a sort of pulling a rabbit out of the hat alternative, you know, I'll have a look at that because maybe it's interesting, and to see them with that level of preparedness before they attend the event is good.
And they also benefit more from having that level of preparedness. I think my favourite student question to some of the stalls and stands and employers that were there, a student was asking, why wouldn't you do this job? As opposed to, why, you know, because obviously they are, what are the downsides? And I thought that was exactly that. I think students have a good awareness and ability to find out from all available channels what is out there and what would suit them best.
So this, just going back to what you said before about how it's possibly changed since pre-COVID, what do you think now are the biggest challenges in connecting young people with employers for work experience?
I think a lot of businesses have changed how they operate, so they may be more of a skeleton staff, or for somebody who needs to be shadowed, you know, that might just not be available as much as it was before. We've got people working different shifts and patterns, you know, they've just changed how they operate their business, and that's absolutely what they're entitled to do. You know, when we place a student, or when a student, is placed within a work setting, you know, we really do need to ensure that they are supervised and they are cared for and looked after. You know, it is not labour intensive, but it's, you know, it needs to be a place where they aren't just left to get on with it. You know, they need to be helped and encouraged. So I think for some businesses that just might not be something that they're able to do at the moment. So and that's absolutely fine. It might not be I know forever, it's just at that time when they've been approached by the careers team that just haven't been able to offer it. But I know that there's conversations ongoing all the time, so that may change during the academic year or from one year to the next. And so the door is never closed, it's always open, and I think it's having that healthy relationship of open communication to say what would help you to have this work placement student, and try and find a way to help it work. And sometimes that will be easier than other times, but I think it's just the world's just changed a lot since COVID, and in some ways it's made it a little bit more of a challenge, but those opportunities still are there. You just need to marry up the two individuals to make that connection work, and we're sure there's some work going on to help with that matchmaking process to try and help that for the future.
Yeah, it's not something I've had a lot of email correspondence from students about. I think very much all of the schools have their careers advice for all students, get some level, and then I said the targeted for those students who have particular interest or entering the workplace. There is a significant amount of support to make a meaningful placement that can assist them, and we are very fortunate, I suppose, on the Isle of Man that we don't have a level of youth unemployment that, you know, most of the young people I've spoken with who've gone into trainee jobs, apprenticeships or otherwise, it might have taken a bit of effort at the start, but I've not heard from any that have failed to get the placement that they've wanted. When I say placement, the job.
How is equality and work experience opportunities monitored? Has an equality impact assessment been undertaken for the work experience policy used across the schools?
We do undertake impact assessments, don't we, on policies, all the policies. But I think that this is an entitlement, so it's there for all students.
Yeah. So that's what the Minister was talking about before, the employed in the careers, education framework and entitlement offering. So that policy supports equality because it's ensuring that it's open to all students to ensure that they have that opportunity.
It's an entitlement.
Yeah.
So that is to all. Yeah.
Thank you.
So, just a quick follow-on from earlier. You said that work experience has now become bespoke. So is this tailored work experience programme failing those students who are left out? Because surely work experience benefits aren't just bespoke to select careers. Across the board, work experience is beneficial.
But I'd say it's the opposite. It's bespoke to the individual student who requires that support from the careers advisor to find a relevant work experience placement that will assist them in either confirming their decision as to the career they want to take, or in having a bit of experience that can support and enhance their chances of obtaining a paid employment or career in a particular direction. But I think, as previously articulated, the world has changed. I think what we're finding is there's still a lot of different working, as in working from home, working remotely, meeting remotely, AI changing the workplace and the available jobs. So the traditional placements where the whole year group was found something to do, where they went for a week or a 2-week block, that's what's finished. But that's not necessarily saying it's disadvantaging. I'd say on the outside of the work experience placements, the schools and the careers advice at the centre and in the individual schools is working mainly with the children who are looking for employment after school to make and to support them to have the best opportunities they can, both for work experience and ongoing career. Whereas it's a reaction to the changing workplace, but it's I think it was an enhanced service for the ones getting the employment. And then we do have a very high proportion of students who go on to post-16 education and then indeed on to university, but a large number who wish to probably obtain actual paid work, which is a work experience.
When we were hearing from Junior Achievement last time, they suggested to us that employers are looking for applicants and they prefer applicants to have work experience. And so do you think that the number of people who are having work experience, getting it from schools, adequate for that?
Yes, I think it's, as I said, it's supporting the number of students. I think that, there's a bit of a circle there if you're saying that a lot of employers want young people to apply who've got the work experience. How many of those workplaces are providing work experience to give young people that experience? We can't match that up if there is a lack of availability because of the changing nature of
how people operate their business.
Yeah. So if employers are saying there's a lack of experience or work experience, I'm not sure that a 1 week or 2 week blanket work experience place is going to provide that level of experience that the employers would feel meets that experience. However, I am aware that the number of young people who are able and do hold down a paid employment, a paid job alongside their studies is quite high on the island, and that I would think is a better example of being able to demonstrate that they have the work experience for going on to any job in any field just by having that. And the one I get actually that a lot of employers have said is that the main skill that they want to find in the applicants is communication. So, and I think you can gain experience and skills and better communication in a lot of areas, not necessarily by having a work experience placement.
I think that's true, and I think this is part of a broader education. We seem to have very large numbers of young people who do, say, Duke of Edinburgh Award at different levels, and they have a volunteering section in that. And many of those approach that like a work experience. I'm going to volunteer at this organisation. I'm going to attend every week for this length of time. I'm going to have to communicate. I'm going to have responsibilities and things like that taken on. It is not wildly different from what you get on work experience. And I think we have large numbers of students do that. And this issue of what is it that employers want, They'll talk about communication, they'll perhaps talk about teamwork and so on, reliability and a series of general sort of personal attributes, really, if you like, that you would then move into a work situation. I think too, in other ways, we can see the big picture of how work is changing and the expectation now that you don't go into a job for life, that you'll work in different sectors over a long period of time. You know, so these generic skills that you're going to be taking with you and are an important part of that. And that's where the schools try to develop that. Sometimes from people coming in from outside and expressing what it is that they need. So I think that's important. So, but there are other ways to get there. And given that, as I said before, we've got this limited supply available of workplaces and work experience, I think working around that it has to be part of the solution.
Thank you. During an oral evidence hearing with the Social Affairs Policy Review Committee on the 12th of September, Graham Kinraid stated, "Engagement in the workplace probably made us all who we are. We will all have done something at a young age, won't we?" Whilst the Chief Officer believes that these experiences have such a big impact in shaping their lives and career paths for young people, it was also stated during this hearing that work experience is not felt to be a priority for the department at present. Can you explain the rationale for these seemingly conflicting beliefs?
I think, as Mr. Craine articulated, the work experience that students and young people can benefit from doesn't necessarily have to be in the formal work experience placement, and that, as we've said, they are facilitated for the students in school who wish to have that experience, but because of the limitation of supply, that is being prioritised, if you like, to the students it's most immediately going to benefit. And I would suggest that, given the buoyancy of the local economy, particularly in hospitality and others, there are a lot of opportunities for young people, either through volunteering or through part-time paid employment, to get a lot of work experience that will stand them in good stead for whichever career they go into.
And I think it's also to say, we wouldn't say it's not a priority. The well-being of all of our young people is a priority, and so ensuring that whatever they require, we can try and meet those needs. And if one of their needs is deemed by the school to be a bespoke programme which includes work experience, and of course we would want that to happen. Just on what you said there from the previous select committee's evidence, can you just repeat what the quote said? Yeah, if that's okay.
Engagement in the workplace probably made us all who we are.
Yeah.
We will all have done something at a young age, won't we?
Yeah, so I suppose I suppose in that context, if we were to look at it literally, there's no reference to in-school work experience. I suppose that work experience could have been on the weekends, or it could have been within a family business.
Duke of Edinburgh.
Or Duke of Edinburgh.
But I suppose what's key of this is to do it in school means that it's fair for everybody. Everyone would have the opportunity. If you take it on an independent level, where it's just up to an individual, obviously we live on a small island, it's kind of, if you have contacts in different departments. I mean, if you look in healthcare, one of the most prevalent interview questions is, what experiences have you had that prepared you for this role? And I don't really know how young people could answer that if they haven't had opportunity to have that work experience, if they don't.
Mm-hmm. I get that.
I understand what you're saying, and when you asked the question before, does the department still have the same level of commitment to work experience? We absolutely would do, in the sense that totally committed to this. As a Year 11 tutor, in the days when students did full work experience, I remember getting a phone call about a student who I saw as quite a difficult student within the tutor group, and they were asking me, could this student do a third week of work experience? And no, I said, we don't do that. You don't understand, we need a, how do you mean you need a? Well, we've got a conference coming over with 300 people coming to the Isle of Man next week, and she's running it, so knocked over, really, So work experience can be an absolutely remarkable thing for young people. I, as a teacher, did a work experience placement. I did the Isle of Man's first teacher placement. I spent a week in Marks and Spencer's, got my leg pulled about it a great deal, but I learned an enormous amount about their management system. So work experience for people at all levels in life is really useful. But we come back to saying that where we're at the moment, given the risk assessments and the need for checks and everything else that goes on, these are not available to us from the workplaces out there, and therefore we've got to sort of tailor our suit according to the cloth we've got, you know, and that's why we're having to work around it. Does it show any less commitment? No, not at all. But it is more complicated. There are changing requirements in the workplace, and there's changing availability of what's there.
Would you not consider working with the private sector then to try and promote what students could potentially do in different contexts to get in touch with businesses who are willing to offer work experience?
I know within like DFE, I'm in the Department of Enterprise as well. We have the STEP programme, which obviously for young people who come back from university, and we try and do like matchmaking there. So there is probably more within the Key Stage 5 and to the university age where that kind of thing does happen. So it's not really just desks.
No, but that we do have a careers team within the centre who do those liaisons with companies and businesses. And as we've said, there's individual schools sorting and supporting students on particular placements. If those are identified, they will work around that student to try to accommodate their career aspirations in an appropriate work placement if one is available or can be found.
Thank you.
So you mentioned that one of the biggest barriers to work experience, you believe, is the supply of opportunities from employers. Now, one of, if not the biggest employer on the island is, of course, government itself. So what work are you doing to kind of promote the creation of more opportunities within government and within its various departments and partner agencies?
We're not, but I think that is a fair observation, and government in so many ways can do more. I would say that in my experience this year, I had approaches from 2 students, both 17 going on 18, who asked if they could do work shadowing of the Education Minister, and hopefully they had very interesting and varied days finding out exactly. I think one has gone off to university with politics, but if there are approaches there, if that is something that is identified, I wouldn't expect that they would be turned down. I don't know how many approaches have been made. I don't know how many students are mad keen to join the public service, but
I know there's a young person working within this building who's on work experience now from one of the high schools. So I know when I'm in, like I said, in DFE as well, I had a young person join me for Manx Grand Prix week in the Classic, and so she shadowed me for that entire week. So there are those opportunities available. It's just waiting for the approach, I guess.
Yeah, of course. I understand there's limited opportunities within government, within Tynwald itself, I suppose. But if we look at government as a whole, you've got Manx Care, you've got the Department of Infrastructure, you've got DFE and all of their agencies, Digital Isle of Man, for example. There's so many different fields encompassed there. Is your department doing anything to kind of try and incentivise those other departments, those other agencies to create opportunities themselves? To create opportunities within the Department of Infrastructure, for example, for people to go and get a work experience there?
It's certainly a question we can take back to the careers
team. I'm not aware that they are or that they're not.
Yeah.
I suppose you could say on the other way, if certain employers such as health and others are requiring some level of work experience, what are they doing to accommodate young people to obtain that experience?
And to approach us.
So, but it comes back to an awareness that the school's careers advisors are very much supporting the individuals who are looking for work experience. So I suppose it's identifying if there are career ambitions for that work experience to happen for particular students, and within the limitations of what's available. But in terms of expanding the placements, and I suppose where we come back to, it's got to be a meaningful placement of work experience that's relevant and beneficial, and that takes quite a bit of effort from the student but also from the employer who's setting up, and it might be that it's better either as a voluntary or as an ongoing part-time role if such can be accommodated.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, I would add to that. We do see a steady flow of people coming through. Legislative Council had a young woman who was effectively shadowing what we did for a whole day, including the sitting and so on. We see these attached to Hansard sometimes and so on. They're passing through. In terms of the wider picture, I think part of the reason why we have fewer jobs available to us for work experience is to do with the changes that we've had in society. So over these last 20 years or so, GDPR, the private information and so on has taken a step forward. When you talk about DOI, if the job involves something physical, there's a risk assessment that needs to be carried out for the specific tasks that the group would be working on today. We've got more barriers in the way to that, and that's crucial. You know, the insurance for the person in undertaking the work experience is an issue, and so you can see how all of these things make it just more difficult, however enthusiastic you'd be about having those people in placement. So it ends up with more focused, more targeted for the young people who would benefit most, who are perhaps approaching a working career and making decisions about a working career now, rather than making the decision to carry on with 3 subjects at A level or whatever. And that's a more targeted product at the end of the day.
Yeah. Got some, I think if we look at what we do, you're talking about individual employers, but are you familiar with the Employability and Careers Education Framework? Has anybody seen that? Because that is based on findings from international, national and local research, and the best practice in the area of the curriculum, learning starting at primary school and then developed further in secondary school, consolidated in any post-compulsory education, but it's ongoing iterative process of employer contact, experience of work, not work experience, and then that our department feels that best prepares students for the world of work, and that not necessarily block work experience, but typical engagements with employers might include careers education programs, skill-based learning opportunities in schools, the employment and skills fair, if we've talked. There's the graduate and young professional event also. There's higher education event. There's STEM events, careers talks, achievement programs, and virtual work experience. And I remember going up, before I was in this role, to Ramsey Grammar School, and it was a particular emphasis on women in work and the different range, and I think there were about 30 people there talking about their career path to get to the point where they were and the skills that they'd taken up on the way. I think that the idea that the work placement is, I think we have to put that aside and say that isn't necessarily the best way to enhance the experience of work rather than work experience.
Yes, I suppose, Ministers, just to expand on that, you can probably get yourself to work every day on time for a week. I think what an employer wants to see is, can you do that regularly every week during the winter, you know, when it's night, when it's dark outside? Can you show that you can do that over a more of a sustained period of time, rather than just a one-hit wonder kind of thing? So I think that's probably why that being part of a timetable for somebody on that bespoke basis helps in other ways, because it's that showing that you have that commitment to the work, rather than just doing it for a week, and it can just be a tick box thing. It needs to be, like I said, a meaningful experience both for the young person and for the employer, so they continue to take on young people.
I think too, the employment of children legislation has been mentioned. I think there's been, because of some of these changes going on in society and in the place of work, there's been a reduction in the confidence of employers to take on young people, and the feeling that they're very restricted. You couldn't let them do this and you couldn't let them do that. And I think that this legislation will help to clarify what young people can do from a certain age and so on. But people of my generation, I was picking fruit in a market garden at 12. I was working at the Villa Marina taking down the wrestling ring at the end of the wrestling nights, at 14, and this was heavy manual work, and it wouldn't be allowed today. It's a different world, and making employers recognise the opportunities that are there, and young people to recognise that yes, you can go and apply for jobs, and you can be working from age 13 upwards in the legislation. So that's important, and that's all part of work experience.
Thank you.
Okay.
Right.
Who's next?
Just a job run a service as a service run by Junior Achievement, targeted specifically to providing jobs to young people. Do you think collaboration with this service could be undertaken to reintroduce work experience for many students?
Do you mean using just a job for work experience placements that employers, again, you'd come back from the availability of placements, and if placements were on there as work experience placements, I expect you'd have very good response from students wanting to take them up, but I don't know that that's happened. And I think we're back to, I think it's a great website. I know young people who engage with it regularly, and I'm aware how popular it is and how there is a requirement from young people to obtain paid work for work experience at a young age, and hopefully the revised employment of children regulations will provide clear guidance whilst looking after the well-being of children who are still studying, to enable them to, and employers to have a clear idea of the types of work that it is possible to employ young people to do.
I just wanted to say that time is a concern, so brevity in the answers is appreciated.
Okay.
Sorry. Earlier in the hearing, it was mentioned that your department was undertaking a review into employment legislation to make jobs more accessible to those under 18. Could you please provide further detail about what will this review entail and what changes we may expect as a result?
So that's the employment of children legislation that you've mentioned before. So
They're on the Tyrrell website.
Yeah.
They are to be hopefully approved by Tyrrell next week. We've worked with a lot of feedback from young people in particular, and we've clarified the guidance that's available to young people. We've revised things. One of the important things for those, so it's employment of children, so it's age 13, 14 and 15 principally. It's under, and it's while in full-time education, so there is certain well-being. It governs how many hours a day you can work on a school day or on a school night, and some of the changes that we've put in to assist employers are a new
rest breaks and things like that.
The rest breaks now are combined, so that you used to have to work as a 13-year-old a 2-hour stint and must have a 15-minute break and then another 2 hours. That is now combined. You could work the 4 hours and have a half an hour break or an hour break, and then
makes
do
it more practical for the employers who want to try and help,
And another important change following feedback from the employers was that the system of recording the child, the under 16 who was working, would be, you could not have to have a separate system to record the hours and the working, but you could do it on your, as long as all the information's captured, do it in your existing system. So there's various revisions to improve the guidance, clarify the types of roles that the children can undertake for paid work, and importantly the measures so that we are maintaining the sort of the well-being. We are looking after the well-being of a child who is in full-time education, and yet setting clear guidance for the hours they can work, and that actually includes unpaid work as well as paid work.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so moving on to the topic of apprenticeships. I know we have discussed this matter quite a bit during the work experience section, but in terms of apprenticeships, what do you see as the benefit of having young people in the workplace rather than learning entirely out of a classroom?
Well, I think it's a tried and tested, long time successful way of earn as you learn as well, because you you're paid for a certain amount of time. I think with the revisions that we've made to increase, first of all, last year increasing the enhancement payments that's paid to employers while that apprentice is in the classroom and not working, they went up 50% to a bigger sum, obviously. And then we tried to manage the amount that we were having going through by restricting that to the smaller employees, and we had, I think there was something like 35 new small companies take on apprenticeships in that time. But the very loud feedback that we heard from various departments was that the larger employers also wanted the enhanced payments putting in, so that's something we've reversed. And I think we look at it over a 10-year average, and they all stay, they do go up and down, but over 10 years it stays pretty consistent. However, I think that this year we may have seen a small reduction. We'll watch with interest whether that adjusts again, because we have another intake in January. And the other thing is, it's not just construction apprenticeships. There is a very wide range of areas that apprenticeships are supported in, and one of the newer ones that was a demand was actually a finance apprenticeship that was coming in from various companies. So yes, and you could say that this has had a lot of attention in the recent years.
Okay. Thank you.
We keep our ears close to the ground too. I know just about 3 weeks ago, maybe in my head, the UCM had their open evening when you could go around. So I was up there for an hour and a half just touring the trade sections of there to talk with them about how apprenticeships are going and so on. So it helps you bring back what the issues are and where we're going on that.
Okay. Thank you. I'm glad you mentioned the various sectors that apprenticeships are available in there, because our next question is, how is the department engaging with both employers and potential employees, or students I suppose, across the various sectors to ensure that apprenticeship work placements are available for all students who wish to participate and are promoted for those sectors that could probably benefit from it?
I think there's quite a lot of focus on apprenticeships, and as you said, that there's a very wide amount of subjects. In terms of the department, we are listening to the feedback. We have very active officers engaged in liaising with a range of the private sector, the trades, and the UCM itself. There's been a lot of development and responsiveness to the employers' requirements, and I said they brought on directly in response to a huge amount of feedback a particular apprentice in the finance, and we'll see how that uptake goes in terms of supporting a range of our businesses, ranging from insurance to pensions to banking. The department, in fact, across government, we've created and support the skills board. I don't know if you've, and there is a skills strategy that is published, and the skills board is very much looking to see if there are areas where the focus and attention needs to go, and if there are other areas that potentially need to come out to develop an apprenticeship that's a formal apprenticeship where there is a clear path for somebody to be employed in a particular sector, but also to have that learning path and qualifications to work for throughout it. So I think the department does quite a bit. And then I should say that the skills board includes the Treasury Minister and the Enterprise Minister as well as myself.
Okay, thank you. That's all from me.
So just on Ireland further and higher education, what do you think are the main strengths of post-16/18 educational and training opportunities available on Ireland?
I think we're very fortunate. I think we've got quite a wide range. Extending the partnership with the University of Chester to the end of the decade is, I think, a positive. The university very much works with UCM to offer certain courses. I'm aware that, again, you could say the changing demands from students, the change of interests, the while some courses have proved less popular, I know that they started a new one that was in sociology and 2 other things, but a sort of social sciences degree, and that started, I think it was this September. I'm losing track a little bit, but that was over 30 applicants on that first degree offering. I think that through Keeldarry and Department of Health and Social Care, there are a number of health places that are available up to degree standard, and I think the range of post-16 education that we've got, whether it's engineering or through A-levels, I think that there is a very broad range that is available to, well, not only young people, but lifelong learning to people, even career changing in whatever age, but particularly for post-16, I think it's
we asked the colleges how many courses, and they said they've got over 300 courses on offer, which includes vocational, academic and higher education, so there's a real wide scope there to try and meet as many people's requirements as possible.
Thank you.
Do you believe that the education system adequately prepares our island students for life beyond school, whether this be through PSHE, life skills for university, for employment?
Yes. You want a brief?
Appreciate it.
Yeah, I would agree with that, yes, but I would recognise it's a demanding task because the world out there is changing all the time. You just look at AI coming in and what impact's that going to have. How do you prepare young people today for that? And even sort of trying to look forward on that. I'm the oldest person I know who did computing at school, okay? This was 53 years ago I did computing in lower sixth. And I was told by my computer teacher, the biggest problem of your generation is going to be what to do with your leisure time because computers will do all the work. So that, you know, looking ahead at what will change is very, very hard. So preparing young people now for the world of work in the future, that is hard, it's demanding, but it takes you right back to the core skills of knowing how to learn, being a learner fundamentally, developing what schools used to call the 6 R's and they're now called under various different euphemisms, but this sense of a range of skills and abilities, attributions, characteristics, if you like, and all the schools are pushing with that, and awareness for their students to see that they're trying to develop themselves. You know, they're not at school to please the teacher, they're at a school being paid maybe or being funded to the tune of 8,000 odd a year, I think, at the moment, to go through school, and the years of schooling are preparing you for your future, you know. So it's communicating all of that and trying to develop them for a working life of possibly in excess of 50 years as the retirement age rises, in which they're going to change sector, change job, change role, etc. going through. It's hard to prepare people for that. It's about mindsets more than anything else.
And in that question I included PSHE, but obviously as an island we have quite a lack of youth engagement in politics, and there isn't really any political engagement within schools.
Yeah, so I do quite a lot of going out to schools, and if I'm invited to go out and speak to different assemblies or to different school councils, but it really does, I can't give my services, I can't advertise myself to the schools.
Or even like implementing political education within a curriculum, so students are more engaged with it, they have more of an understanding amongst politics.
Well, that's through Clerk Tynwald's office, through Tynwald, there is the ability for all primary schools to enjoy the day having a debate, showing the tour of the legislative buildings, enjoying, somebody gets to be speaker, they can come up with their own subject matter to debate, and transport to Tynwald is coordinated by the office here. Disappointingly, not all schools take that up, because schools actually have a huge amount of other learning to include. I think when it gets to secondary school, I would love there to be much more interest in politics and more engagement, especially as we have the young people from the age of 16 able to vote, and not all young people are as engaged as yourselves in terms of it going. And I remember criticism a few years ago was that there wasn't any financial information in PSHE, and I think now that, you know, things like your tax return and banking and those sort of things, I think that the schools can encourage, subject matter to be covered. There's also the ability to have the assemblies, to have guest speakers like you were at the assemblies. But there is so much to fit in the education day. I would think that, the Manx culture, heritage and politics is a great area. But there's also the other part of me that thinks it is available. You can lead a horse to water, you can't always get it to drink. It's how much... there's also the difficulty for us coming up to an election year, that there are limits on the ability for members in an election year to...
There's rules around what you can... if one candidate goes, all candidates have to be invited, so it makes it more complicated for the schools, and I don't think they have, an appetite to try and negotiate all of those different complications, because obviously there's lots of rules around elections and what can happen and what can't happen. Just on your question before, myself and Mr. Craine used to work in a school, so I used to work at Maltby for 14 years. Mr. Craine, I don't know how long you were there for, but so we are really aware of that, trying to get that young person that well-rounded, and actually I think I learned just as much from the young people as I was trying to teach them. So, and I think we have a great workforce within our schools who are just trying their absolute best to ensure that they provide all of those different things that the young person wants. And I think that it's so important that they have that relationship where they can talk honestly about what they want to do in the future and trying to shape those futures together, and I think we have an enormous respect for the teachers, the education support staff, everybody within schools on the island who are trying their very best to ensure that the young people feel like they are being listened to and they are getting that best support. But we do recognise that it's hard. It's certainly harder than what it used to be, and we recognise that.
I think too, political education, we mustn't think of that as something narrow. Okay, it's crucial that all our young people understand that we've got a separate parliament here, and it has sort of perhaps three chambers to it, and awareness of just the broadest things. But when you get into detail beyond that, politics is so broad. I mean, that's one of the things that we would see in here. You get briefings on such a wide range of areas, that it's much more appropriate really to be using the opportunities as they arise. So this morning I spent an hour and a half in one of the secondary schools doing a presentation to sociology students in year 12 and talking about aspects of the politics behind this. And my role in Legislative Council was coming up, but we were focusing in on the issues of what's been happening to births in the Isle of Man in particular, why they rose to 2010 and why they've gone down since then, and we had a full session on that, and the politics side of that was absolutely there. So and it's taking every opportunity like that. I'm not in the position of having an election coming up. I'm here in Legislative Council till 2028, so there's no restriction on me going into schools. I'm possibly going back in January, if the young people think they can cope with that. But, so many routes into that, and I think it's an ongoing thing. It's never going to be as simple. This is the strategy. It depends on what studies they're doing. It's easier to do that if someone's doing sociology or economics or geography than perhaps it is if they're doing science or something like that. But going in to talk about the politics in a science lesson is far harder.
All right, we are running out of time now, so we'll just skip to the end here. We would like to ask what you think, in your opinion, is the biggest challenge young people face in gaining employment today?
I'd probably ask you that.
Your report, I hope, will tell us that's something that we're not missing.
I think I'd like to turn the question around in a sense. The biggest challenge, and we're looking at the negatives and feeding to young people why this is going to be hard, I'd turn it around and say, how can they overcome the challenges? And I think having an absolutely spot-on mindset, that understands what learning is, what your strengths are, what your weaknesses are, and knowing what you want, really. They're the bits that I would see. So it's overcoming the challenges rather than just listing them.
We are looking for what you see as the biggest challenges.
I suppose, maybe like self-esteem, possibly. You know, I suppose, you know, a lot of people have gone through COVID, and you've been younger people when you've gone through that, and perhaps first, you know, we all experienced something very unique and different, but we were adults when we went through that. You were younger people, so I suppose it's kind of learning to adjust to like what to, you know, come out of isolation back into a world where you then need to be with other people again. So I suppose maybe possibly self-esteem and that confidence that in their own ability. Yeah.
Self-confidence, and I think communication plays a part in it. I think that we've seen quite a significant increase in anxiety levels, but I think building and supporting young people to have that confidence to go out to apply for whichever job they want, and or future or next levels of education. I think confidence and self-esteem, but also communication, and I think there are many different ways that they can be enhanced, encouraged and developed. But it does, to some degree, it does come down to the individuals, and it's for them to feel empowered to go onto it. And I would be more interested to say what you feel are the barriers, because it's, again, I think we're in a fortunate place within the island that there are plenty of jobs, training courses, 300 post-16 courses at the UCM. We're in a very good place at the minute, I think, for the range of opportunities that are out there.
Okay. Sorry, I might get crucified for adding another question in here, but just from your inability to answer that question, do you feel the department's out of touch with the very young people that it's there to support? If you don't know what these barriers are that young people are facing, how is the department working to break those barriers down, to improve things for the young people?
The department, and in various policies across government, there is a focus on the voice of the young people, particularly in policy formation that affects young people. So that is articulated across many. We have very many different responsibilities and duties on us, but that is obviously at the heart of everything we do. I think that at some level, the schools have the most direct contact with the young people on their school role and their care, and the department is in some way channeled that information through to department and the policymakers, and the very people that are enhancing our political thinking and policies actually is driven a lot from those, particularly the teachers at various levels, but from the young people themselves. Yeah. And when I was saying it, I can think that we have come through a unique situation of a world pandemic that has undoubtedly had a massive impact on how people work, how people learn, on self-confidence, and also has changed a lot of people's ambitions in terms of their life goals individually. And I think there's a lot more sort of social conscience people, not for profit, rather than the sort of, when I was growing up in the 80s, it was all about money, follow the money, and I see a very different social conscience emerging from young people. But while there undoubtedly are barriers, I don't see a particular one being uniform. I think that different students have very different challenges or barriers to employment or further education. And I think that where the department is, we're all about inclusive education and supporting the needs of each individual student to enable them to thrive in whatever area they go. And I wouldn't say, so it's not that we don't know or out of touch at all. I think that I think it would be too sweeping a statement to say there is one barrier for all students.
I've met some incredibly driven, passionate, ambitious people who know exactly where they're going to go and what they're going to do and how they're going to do it. And then you might meet other people who are the complete opposite to that. So to make one statement about how many young people we have on the Isle of Man would be, I think that would show that we were out of touch, because then we'd be generalising, and we don't want to do that.
I think we provide the opportunities, and we do respond to the changing needs of young people, but also lifelong learning across the island. Okay. And that's where the department's responsibility is.
Thank you. Sorry, I'll let Jeffrey wrap it up.
All right, unless anybody else has any sudden unprompted questions. Before we finish today, is there anything else which we have not discussed today which you would like to make us aware of?
No, just look forward to seeing your report. You know, we're really interested. We want to hear what you've got to say. And we had the last report from the last youth committee, which I'm working on within with another hat on. So, you know, they are being read and they are being taken seriously. So, yeah, really looking forward to seeing this next report.
Just to say thank you for inviting us along to have the opportunity to speak to you and answer the questions.
This is my first ever time giving evidence to select committee, so I was really felt under the pressure there. So thank you for making it easier.
No, thank you for your time today. The committee will now sit in private.
Thank you. That's all I need to know.
Are you all ready?
Yeah, ready when you are.
Good afternoon and welcome to this public meeting of the Youth Select Committee. I am Freya Beggs and I will be acting as chair for the committee today as Rihanna is unable to attend. After talking to our peers, we decided that this inquiry would examine the educational, vocational and developmental opportunities available on the island to young people leaving secondary or higher education. We will now be hearing from representatives from the Department for Enterprise. Please ensure that any mobile phones are turned off or on silent so that we do not have any interruptions or disruptions. For the purpose of Hansard, I will be ensuring that we do not have more than one person speaking at once. With me today are the other members of the committee who I will ask to introduce themselves now.
Hello, I'm Alex Cowley.
I'm David Cowan.
Oh, I'm Jeffrey Comish.
For the record, could you please introduce yourselves and your role in the department? Thank you.
Shall I start? I'm Anne Corlett and I'm a political member in Enterprise, and my responsibilities lie with the digital agency and Locate.
I'm Alison Tier. I'm head of Locate Isle of Man that sits within Department for Enterprise. We are a division rather than an agency.
I'm Mark Yell. I'm the chairman for Skills Isle of Man.
Okay, thank you. So I'd like to start off with the top.
I just need to try and switch my phone off if you don't mind. So.
Yeah, no, that's okay.
That's fine.
Okay, so I'd like to start with the topic of apprenticeships, if that's okay with you. So in August this year, a new apprenticeships programme was announced by the department in collaboration with the financial services industry and also with UCM. Could you give us a brief overview of what this scheme's planned to look like and what the intended outcomes are for its participants?
I think I can probably answer that for you. This apprenticeship, it was launched in August, and it's starting in September 26. So the theme has been developed by the London Institute of Banking and Finance in conjunction with UCM and the trade bodies for financial and professional services. So Finance Isle of Man has been supported by the London Institute of Banking and Finance to launch the scheme, and they're going to continue to assist in the promoting of the scheme to the industry. So it's available really for students who are newly employed, 12 months or less, within the financial services firm, so they need a job to do this. Students will complete an agreed level 3 professional qualification online and will enrol with UCM into their level 4 higher certificate, HNC, in business. And then after that, students can commence a 2-year part-time HNC with UCM on a day release, 1 day a week with the firm that they're... Now, the HNC is also, that's available to anybody too, so you don't have to have taken the previous. You can be from other sectors. It's more widely available, gives you more opportunities. And what we're trying to do is we're working with Business Isle of Man to try and raise awareness of it and to expand the take-up of it. So I don't know whether that explains.
Okay. Yes, that explains. Thank you. So you've mentioned working with Business Isle of Man and with the London Institute of Business and Finance to promote the scheme. What sort of promotion do you have planned, in particular for those under the age of 25? Is this something that is going to be actively promoted to young people, or are they going to have to seek it out themselves?
Okay, well, it's online. There's a lot of, and you know, if you just Google it, it'll give you all the information that you need on it, really. I say that the Business Isle of Man are actively trying to raise awareness through businesses on the island to get their employees to take it up. I haven't seen anything. I guess actually it is on the UCM website, isn't it?
It is. So yeah,
it's
UCM are also
promoted
doing a lot
UCM.
of pushing of it as well. And it's also pushed through their events. There's Finance have a newsletter as well, Business have a newsletter, so they're pushing that out into that through to industry, to raise awareness as much as possible to get people to understand about it.
Yeah, any suggestions of how that could be pushed out further would be very welcome.
Okay, and what about to students, both those in, I mean, I know you mentioned UCM, but what about those students that might already be at university across and that are looking at returning to the island, or those already, or those sitting their A-levels, sorry? Are you looking at promoting to them?
I don't mean to take that
yes, please.
Yeah, so from that perspective, they have to be in a job to start it. So we have I'll tell you a little bit more later on about the graduates ecosystem and our outreach to students in the UK, or those that have our own students and new students. So that would be in a graduates newsletter as well, about the availability of it, but they'd have to find the role first. Okay. So it's you're in a role before you start the course, within 12 months of starting. Okay,
thank you. And whose idea was this scheme? Where did it come from? Was it the London Institute of Banking and Finance? Was it the department? Was it industry? Who came up with the concept?
So it was the London. The Finance Isle of Man was approached by the LIBT about the incentive and about how they put the course together. So they have done all the legwork on setting it up, the initial conversations with UCM, and from Finance Isle of Man's point of view, it's they have the inroads into businesses, they have them into the sector to be able to support them. So it's been a real collaboration between UCM, Finance Isle of Man, and on that side. Okay. Yeah.
And do you think this scheme would have come about then if you hadn't have been approached by the London Institute?
That's hard to say, really. Yeah. I guess what you're asking is, were we actively looking for something?
I suppose that's the more broader question, yes. Was the department looking at setting up schemes like this already, or was it because the London Institute approached you that the idea came about?
I guess the finance agency might be able to give us more information on that. Is it okay if we take that back and then we can find out? Okay.
Just as a follow-up to that one, again, you might not be able to answer it, that's perfectly fine as a written answer, but has the creation of a similar initiative been discussed or explored with any other sectors outside of finance?
Yes, well, the HNC part of it is a generic business course, so that could be undertaken by any sector with a business function. So that broadens that part of it out, and anybody can take that. You don't have to have done the finance part of it.
But are there any other similar schemes similar to this one then that are being looked at, to rephrase the question?
Not via
not that I'm aware of. It would be coming through, often that comes through desk, through UCM and out that way, and then we would support the other side. But saying that, we're always open to suggestions. So just like this one, if somebody was to come and say, this is, what do we do with this idea, in whatever sector it is, we would work. So we work very closely with UCM. So we would work with them and say, well, okay, we'll introduce you to the right people and see and build it out from there, and then help with the promotion of it. So it would be very much in the same way. It would sort of be a collaborative approach to it.
Okay. Excellent. Thank you.
DFE also, we're always listening to business to see what their wants and needs are. So very often things are developed because businesses are telling you this is what we need.
Mm-hmm. Okay, excellent. Thank you. That's all from me.
Can you provide us with some of the further details about what financial support and training opportunities are offered by the Business Startup Scheme?
Okay. So, Business Startup Scheme itself came into operation on the 1st of April this year. So, the scheme itself offers support and training opportunities. So there's some funding available. Up to £6,000 is payable as a 50% reimbursement grant, living allowance or combination of both. There's enhancement funding of up to £15,000 for key sectors, and that's quite targeted. It's exporting business and childcare providers. So what we've tried to do there is target the kind of sectors that we need to grow. So there's further assistance of up to £10,000 to support job creation. Training-wise, is flexible, free of charge training, 16 hours, with morning, weekend, twilight. We're trying to fit in with people when they can do that, covering all aspects of running a business. And there's access to an experienced business advisor, excuse me, to assist in developing an effective and comprehensive business plan. It's fully funded by the department, and there's ongoing mentoring for 18 months after the training. And usually a total of 9 meetings is provided. And what we were trying to do with this particular scheme was refresh the micro business grant scheme, which was previously the small business startup scheme, which had successfully operated for approximately 20 years. So it's a refresh really of that scheme. So have you any kind of specific questions around?
How many applicants for this scheme were aged 25 and below, and can we be provided with this data?
Okay. We can also send you this as a chart, which will be helpful. But I can tell you that the business consultancy scheme had 42 applicants in total, and 14 were approved. Now then, wait a minute. Business startup scheme had 134 applicants, 10 of which were under 25. Okay. And 5 of those were funded.
And that was in year 25 to 26 as well. So
yes, this next question is one for you, mainly. Where do you think there are large skills gap at present, and which sectors business?
Okay. In terms of skills gaps, the industries with growing demand are engineering and manufacturing. And that's expanding with advanced technical roles, automation, integration of AI, and also in terms of leadership positions. So there's a demand in the engineering sector. The second sector is finance, where there's a growth in terms of funds, insurance, pensions. There's demand for compliance, risk, data analytics, ESG, and also AI roles. And the third area there is construction, where trades, where there's trades with more specialist roles linked to environmental technologies, professional roles in terms of electricians, project managers, quantity surveyors will be needed. Fourth sector that has a high demand, and it's a sustained high demand, is in terms of healthcare, across healthcare. And there's also a small but emerging demand in farming and agriculture.
Thank you. In the Department for Enterprise's submission to the committee, it was written that there is an ongoing analysis of the island's current and future skills needs being undertaken, followed by delivery of relevant learning opportunities in response to this data. Has the Skills Board established or considered public reporting on skills and industry demands to help young people plan their careers based on where they'd be more likely to ensure secure employment?
So I can answer that. One of the biggest challenges we've had is actually gathering data. We now have our first quarterly report for the Q3 2025, where we actually have data from the job centres from the various recruitment agencies coming together, which are identifying the industries with growing demand and where the potential needs are. we're going to have our skills board meeting in January, which will actually discuss the implications and what the data is telling us. It's taken some time to be able to pull together. If you've ever spent any time in data analytics, you've got to identify all your sources, pull the data in, do the analytics, and also do the analysis and the trends. So we have that data coming out. Part of our communications that we are planning is also have a public version of that. It goes into quite significant detail, and I don't think it's appropriate to publish all the significant detail, but the major trends we are planning to make public. And I would expect that to be in the first half of next year.
What learning opportunities have been or will be developed by the Skills Board to respond to the needs of the island?
That aligns very much to the island strategy and also to the demands of the industry, because effectively the industry and the potential business opportunities on the island which align to the strategy determine our high-level needs for the island and therefore the requirements. So it is very much a data-driven approach that we're planning to use. We have the data coming through. The requirements are then basically defined by industry, because they are the consumers of our people in terms of bringing them job opportunities, growth, personal development, careers, etc. That then also allows us as a skills board to recommend policies and funding where it's appropriate. So that is part of the work that we're going through at this point in time.
How will these opportunities be handled operationally? Will the board work in conjunction with the Department of Education, Sport and Culture or external stakeholders to develop training opportunities for those under the age of 25?
So in terms of under the age of 25, I'd like to just broaden the subject slightly for you, and I apologize in advance. I think one of the important things for young people is to realize that you're at the start of lifelong learning, and therefore the ability to change careers and to have the human skills, the resilience, the willingness to continually learn it becomes very important. So we're working very much in that area to bring that more to the fore now, because it's not only the young people, but it's actually the mid-career and the older people as well. And that ability to continuously learn is very important. Now, to focus on the young people, the Skills Board comprises 3 ministers: the Minister for Education, the Minister for Treasury, and the Minister for Enterprise, together with government officers from the various ministries. We also have the principals of UCM and the education authorities together, working with the Chamber of Commerce, and we have representatives from business there. So we're actually in a unique position as far as we have key decision makers in industry, in government, and in education to actually get the alignment of the needs together. So that helps facilitate policy, potentially funding opportunities. We don't, as a Skills Board, have the funding, but the various ministries have the funding, if that makes sense.
So moving on to the topic of work experience. The skills strategy for 2024 to 27 includes a priority of ensuring that the education system equips young people with the knowledge and skills that the local job market demands. How important do you think work experience is as a method through which these skills and areas of knowledge can be created?
I think it's absolutely crucial. I think that we haven't got it developed enough. There isn't enough of it. I think there's a difficulty in sort of coordinating it, in that the students sit in desk, but desk do not have the interaction with business that's needed to develop the opportunities. so perhaps Enterprise have that, or the Skills Board. I think there is a better way of doing it, but it's absolutely vital and we need to get on top of it.
Okay.
That's my opinion.
And so do you think that the Department of Enterprise should have more input into the work experience and the creation of work experience roles for young people?
I think that's where the connection with businesses is, and it would be silly not to use that, I guess, in a way. So I think it needs to be more collaborative. It has to sit with desk because that's where the students sit, in my mind. But we could be far more collaborative by using other departments and the Skills Board itself to develop the opportunities for work experience. It's not a simple thing to do. We need a lot of businesses to take part in it, and government and its departments. But that needs bringing together in a much better way, and it kind of needs to be a one-stop shop, but others feeding into that.
Okay.
If I could also add to that, I know Desk is, in fact, I came out this meeting this morning with Desk. They have a careers team that's working very closely, looking at both primary, secondary and tertiary education, and how they bring in the human skills that are important in terms of work experience. And there are two aspects to this. One is the human skills that you as an individual learn, your ability to communicate, your resilience, your listening skills, your empathetic skills, your social skills, your networking skills. And then there's the technical aspect, which is the scientific subjects you study, the technical knowledge that you acquire, typically in formal education. And actually, what was interesting is they're focusing it all the way from primary schools in the early days of learning to build up these, because these actually make you much more employable in the market, because the employers are not only looking for your technical skills, they're looking for your human skills, if that makes sense. And
yes, thank you. And so in our oral evidence hearing with the Department for Education, Sport and Culture and the Minister there, she mentioned that they've moved from a more widespread system of work experience to a more tailored version, where rather than attempting to get as many students as possible work experience, they've instead changed to getting maybe 8 to 15 per year group tailored work experience for what they need. Do you believe that's the right approach, or do you think they should go back to that method, or back to that previous method of getting as many students?
I don't think that's a fair, equitable.
Inadequate. Oh, sorry?
I don't think that's a fair and equitable way to do it. If you're only going to do a certain number of students a year, from a personal opinion, I don't think that's equitable.
Sorry, just to clarify, I don't think they are capping the numbers, but I think they are looking at those students that they believe need the experience the most and focusing on them, rather than trying to give the most experience to the most amount of students.
Okay, but I think there's something valuable for everybody, surely, in work experience, even if it's just for a week somewhere. And I think I read in the UK are considering making this statutory, and they're going to do it in two-week. I don't know, is it year 9 and 10 and then further on? I can't quite remember, it's just something in my mind. And that seems to me, you know, if it's a statutory provision, then you have to do it. I can't stress enough what I think the benefits of work experience are, not only from a student's point of view, but from a employer's point of view. You know, it's not about just students getting experience. You can make connections with an employer that might serve you well later on when you're actually finished school and looking for a job.
Okay. And we've heard both from the schools and from ministers that one of the biggest issues, or one of the biggest barriers to getting more students work experience, is the supply. Mm-hmm. How do you think that could be tackled? I think, or how do you think it should best be tackled?
Industry is key in that, really. You know, we have to work with industry in order to provide the places to do that. I say it's not an easy thing to do, and I understand why they're targeting at the moment, because they've got limited opportunities to do it. But what I think we ought to be doing is broadening that.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
As much as possible.
Yeah, thank you. And sorry. So obviously creating roles in the private sector is always going to be a big issue. What role do you think the public sector could play in creating work experience placements? I know government is obviously a huge employer, and just looking at the Department for Enterprise in particular, you encompass so many sectors with Business Isle of Man, Locate Isle of Man, Digital Isle of Man.
Yeah, government have got a lot of departments, divisions, agencies that are actually crucial to other sectors. So we ought to be leading the way in this.
And do you think government's doing enough at the moment to
No.
promote it?
No, I don't.
No. Thank you.
And sorry, just on factors people face with challenges to obtaining employment, do you believe that self-esteem is one of the biggest barriers that young people face on our island in securing employment, or do you think there are greater challenges?
It's a bit difficult. I mean, thinking back, self-esteem's really important, isn't it? Because the confidence you have in an interview is really important. Is it the biggest barrier? No. I don't know. I'll ask the other members and see what...
So from a Locate perspective, we speak a lot with industry and recruitment agencies on skills, on young people, on skilled workers in general. There is a perception that from their perspective that the lack of confidence is a barrier. So if young people feel that their lack of confidence is also a barrier, they're marrying up in a way. And I'm not saying that's the only barrier, but I have heard from employers and from recruitment agencies that there is a lack of confidence in some people. They don't feel confident going to interview. Their CVs aren't up to scratch, and there has been mention in the past of people bringing their mums with them to interviews, people bringing their mums with them to recruitment agencies, and that'll be down to the fact that they just need some more confidence, some more behind them, and I think that preparation and all the things that Dr. Yell said earlier about those behavioural, those human skills, it's how that is brought about. And I mean, I'd very much like to speak to you at some point about how ideas for how that can, that can be nurtured. Because I mean, it's not the only barrier, but it is a barrier. Yes.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah. Thank you.
No further questions? All right. These next few questions are for you, Miss Tia. Locate Isle of Man has a core focus on developing a graduates ecosystem, an initiative created in response to challenges posed by the COVID-19 pandemic. What were the main challenges which the pandemic exacerbated for young people in the agency's opinion?
So during COVID, obviously, the pandemic and lockdown, that obviously meant that a lot of people that had been in the UK chose to come back, and that would be from a student's perspective at that time. And then they were looking for employment. So the graduates ecosystem was brought about in 2021 to try and work with employees and with individuals to find a match for graduates who are looking for a job. And that's how it began, brought solely out of COVID in that response. I think at the time there is some data from Desk that I found 2021 to 22, there was an increase in those staying on to sixth form at that time as well. So people decided, we'll just stay put a little bit longer. We won't try and seek a job, or we won't be going to university. We'll just stay on a little bit longer. So yeah, that was the start of the graduates ecosystem. That has now evolved, and I can tell you a little bit more about that if you're interested in that.
There are some questions which may be related to that.
Okay.
In your strategy for 2024 to 2027, it is written that you expect to attract 600 graduates annually to a dedicated database. Can you explain more about what you mean by dedicated database and how you plan for this to occur?
Yeah, so the graduates ecosystem has now evolved. And it's now it's about those who remain on Ireland, those who may come back to Ireland, the island, or new. So we're what we aim to do is to make sure that we have awareness of what's happening on Ireland to all those 3 areas. And the dedicated database is really around a growing list of people who are interested. Now, they might be Remainers, they might be coming back to the island, or they might be new. And we're building that by going out using the University Awareness and Attraction Programme, which I can tell you more about in a minute, and building up a list, a database of people who are interested in the Isle of Man and their opportunities. So at the moment, it started in the beginning of 2025, and at the moment there's over 1,000 people who receive an email each month that tells them about opportunities on the Isle of Man. And in that as well, what we try to do is not just tell them about role opportunities, we tell them about other things that are going on, so sporting events or festivals or anything that's that's happening during the summer, or new things that open. So it's a broad newsletter about everything that's going on in the Isle of Man, but then we interweave the roles that are coming from recruitment agencies, send us roles, graduate roles, and so do individual businesses as well.
All right. In order to grow a larger, more diverse, younger population, surely it is crucial to examine all aspects of living which are preventing graduates returning or moving to the island. Are you working with other departments and agencies to achieve this outcome?
Yes, I think obviously we do surveys, we try and talk to as many people as we can from both from industry and from young people. We work with the childcare strategy team. I often go to the Housing and Communities Board when appropriate to talk to them. And obviously there are some challenges that I've identified, and we do try and make sure that our voice is heard on behalf of those young people, and as much as possible. I do tend to put my nose in where I can.
All right. The Locate strategy also describes potential to implement a university awareness and attraction program, which would focus on our skills shortages with outreach to UK universities, targeting both existing and alumni students. Has any work progressed on this programme to date, and how will this work in practice?
Yes, so that started in September of 2024, so it's been it has been running a year now. The idea with the University Awareness and Attraction Programme is we looked across a wide breadth of universities in the UK. We worked out where most of our students were as a first mapping exercise. Then we overlaid the areas and skills areas and courses that we thought that the island most needed, and then we chose 10 universities across the UK to build relationships with. So we're in year 1 now, and we've built relationships with 5 universities. So they're the 2 Lancaster universities, 2 Liverpool universities, and the Cumbria University. And that's going really well. So we go to their graduate fairs, we go to their freshers events, and that's obviously where we would add to the database. There's always a few Manx students there, which is always great. They always make themselves known and then bring their friends, and then obviously those new. Other things about that, we're obviously careers fairs. We're also looking at student placements from universities as well, which is interesting when you're talking about placements, work experience placements. These placements would be 6 months to a year on the island. So we're now looking at, obviously accommodation's a barrier there, so we're looking at ways that accommodation can be provided for them. The businesses that would like to have them for the year or for the 6-month period, and how we can facilitate that. We're also looking at a student ambassador programme. So University of Liverpool, they they run an ambassador programme, so we're trying to work out how we can have our own student ambassador within universities. There's a lot going on, and also work experience as well. I think just following on from what you were saying before, we do have within Department for Enterprise, we do have the access to get to the businesses. So it is important for us to work closely with UCM and DES to make sure that they know, because different businesses will want different levels of placement. Some businesses will take them at 16, some businesses would want them as graduates, undergraduates. So it's trying to sort of work out, there's so many different areas wanting placements. It's like a jigsaw really.
Thank you. I'll pass you back to a chair now.
Okay. Thank you. So I've just got some more general questions to end us off now.
Okay.
So some of the answers we've received from you this afternoon have contrasted, honestly, quite starkly with some of the answers received from representatives of the Department of Education, Sport and Culture. Do you feel that there's enough cooperation between DofE as the department essentially responsible for industry and DESC as that department responsible for ensuring that our young people are equipped for industry?
If I just start first, I would say that from a locate perspective, the way we collaborate is we have a central skills group, which covers both young people and sort of the skilled worker section. And there is a representative from each of the executive agencies on that skills group. So they bring their skills and knowledge into there. That feeds up once we have a curriculum meeting every term with UCM. And so those skills representatives come into UCM. And we have a conversation with them about the skills side of obviously everything that's going on in industry. That allows them to look at their curriculum and about how curriculum planning in future term or future years. That then, in turn, is just about to start feeding up to the skills board. So I do think that things are coming together, and we work very closely with UCM. Probably could work better with the high schools, but saying that, we do, when coming up to graduates fair, which we put in every year, we go to the sixth form every year, and we go around all the sixth forms and talk to them. So there are strong links. Yeah.
Okay.
But they could always be better. Working together always has better outcomes. So I'm very supportive of closer links between DESC and DFE.
Okay.
We are building those links, and we are improving them considerably. I took over the chair in June of this year, I believe. I stand to be corrected. But part of that is actually getting the business needs into the education, understanding also the challenges of education as well, because you need a certain number of students to be able to put on a course, otherwise it's not viable. So there are a number of other challenges that we need to get the alignment on in terms of work out as a cohesive whole how we actually address some of the opportunities.
Okay, thank you. And so now I'd just like to ask what you think, in your opinion, is the biggest challenge faced by young people in gaining employment today?
I'll give my... Okay, I graduated from my BSc in 1981 in the UK. There were no jobs available for any students. If you got a first-class degree, it took you 6 months at least to get a job. I'd already planned what I was doing. So I didn't have that challenge, but a lot of my friends and colleagues do. What you find is we go through cycles, business cycles. So, be aware that there are business cycles. One thing I've learned over my career is that the most important thing to understand is you through a continuous learning program. The only time you stop learning is when they put you in the grave. So, having that mental agility to be flexible, to be agile, it's a certain Darwinian theory behind it. If you understand Darwinian theory, the theory of evolution, the most flexible and agile species survive, and conceptually it's a very similar thing. So it's important to realize that philosophy of continuous learning.
I would say in a world where AI is becoming more and more prevalent, I think you need to think, how will you stand out? Because how you behave, your behaviours and how you come across is something that's going to set you apart from AI. And that is going to be so incredibly important when you go to interview, when you send in your CV. So I think you've got to be you, and you've got to be broad, and you've got to, it's about the sports that you do, it's about the interests that you have, it's about the human that you are, that will set you apart from somebody who can, co-pilot can just deliver the same thing. So yeah, how you stand out. Yeah,
I think you'd mentioned confidence there earlier when we were talking, and for me, whatever the barriers are, we need to identify them and break them down. And unless we know what they are, then we can't address them. So it's committees like this that, hopefully will identify some of those barriers for young people, because you're experiencing it. And then it's down to the likes of us to try to break those barriers down and to help young people to break those barriers.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah, the other thing to just be very aware of is we're going through a number of very frequent industrial revolutions. So that ability to adapt and to take on the new skills and to be progressive with that, I think the era of going into tertiary education and having a career mapped ahead of you has changed. Okay, I think that's an important message to give. You go into banking and you follow a banking career throughout your life. It's a lot more disruptive, shall we say, and those human skills, those behavioral skills, are actually the most important. I had a discussion with an HR director in the UK many years ago that left a lasting imprint. And it went something along these lines, that you recruited for what you know and you sacked for who you are. Now, it's a very provocative statement. However, it does emphasize how important who you are is.
Yeah, that's excellent. Thank you very much. We had some really interesting answers there. Thank you for your time. And the committee will now sit in private.
Okay.
Thank you.